Hey everyone, I'm Mark,
And I'm Alex.
and this is Final Stop for Final Fantasy Talks. Welcome everyone to episode 42. This is going to be a slight different episode for you all. If you listened to our last episode, we finished Final Fantasy IX and we kind of gave a little hint to this about we're going to be like grading the game, so to speak. And Alex and I, we've kind of been hashing out what categories we want to kind of decide on these because this is the first one we're doing it for, and we plan on using this whole grading system and categories for the other Final Fantasies we talk about. So we are going to kind of do this unscripted, free flow. So it might not be as polished as our other episodes, and we also aren't going to have a short segment in it. Let's just hop straight into it, man. Our first category is the storyline, obviously, beginning to end. And what we'll probably do is we'll just give it our grade and then we'll talk about it for a little bit and then I guess we'll just move on. So, what'd you think, man? What did you think of the story grade wise?
Oh man, a story, I would give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay,
Yeah. What about
interesting.
you?
I gave it an 8 out of a 10 as well.
Great minds think alike, man.
Yes. And I don't know, man. I thought it was fantastic. I will admit that I enjoyed the first half of the story just infinitely more than the last half. And
Really?
I think a lot of the Final Fantasies, and we're not going to go into them, but they start to just kind of really get off the rails at the end of the game, don't they? I mean, even just like last
Yeah.
episode we talked about Necron. It's like, dude, what is this? Like, where'd this guy even come from? Why are we fighting him all of a sudden? It's almost a letdown. It's like Kuja's supposed to be the main guy. It's like if you had
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII and you fought Sephiroth and you killed him, and then you got like Joe Jimba coming down like, yo, what up, dude? Actually, he sucks. I'm even better. And you're like, okay, all right. Well, he was
Well,
the antagonist
yeah.
the whole entire story.
And that's kind of funny that you bring that up because honestly, especially around Final Fantasy IX, that's like a really common, conversation topic towards
Yeah,
the end of the game. A lot of people just they either really hated the concept of, Necron becoming kind of like the main behind the scenes bad guy, and a lot of people just in general like were trying to make sense of it because like what you
yes,
said, I kind of agree with you with that. What I think, at the end of the game, it starts getting really complicated. You've got
it
the
does. Yes,
assimilation concept of Gaia and Terra, you've got Garland and all of the things that he said, you've still got
true.
Kuji, you've got the Crystal of Life, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I feel you. I think I kind of like the fact that the antagonists change over time. Like in the beginning, it's Queen Braun and
Oh,
Alexandria,
yes.
then Kuja, then kind of Garland enters the picture. But yeah, Necron was like very, very end of the game, kind of out of the blue.
Yeah, dude, he's way out of midfield, just like, oh, hey, what's up, guys? I'm joining in. And it's not that I dislike the story of that. I mean, that's actually to I guess to defend them. My first half, I like the first half just because I don't know. It's kind of like the humble beginnings, you know. It's really fun, like kind of
Hmm.
start. Now we've talked about this many times. We really enjoy the Final Fantasies where you start out as a nothing. You're
Hmm.
a common thief, and what do we do in the end? Well, we saved in existence as it's known, like
Yep,
and we literally were just a thief in the dark with the flame in the very beginning. And so I kind of like
exactly.
that, and also of course the beginning of the game is just it's all very medieval feeling, and it's kind of fun and it has so much jokes and stuff in it and all these things. And towards the end it gets really sober. I mean, I understand that, and that's not really kind of a negative thing, but I definitely did prefer the kind of more witty, lighthearted Final Fantasy 9.
Yeah, they tried to sprinkle in a little bit of humor with like the Kina scene in
Oh yes.
Memoria and the Beatrix part. That was definitely them trying to, where she's like, "You, the short one," and he's like, "I'm blah blah blah." She's like, "I don't care who you are." So,
Yeah, exactly.
but yeah, I get what you're saying, and I kind of agree. I like the beginning a lot, but I also like the end a lot. Like I like Terra and Bran Bell and all that kind of stuff. I think where the game gets a little bit slow for me is kind of in the middle, like when you go to the outer continent and Fossil Rue and all that kind of
Wait, you
stuff.
don't like going back Aoife Tree and Madain Sari back and forth, back and forth, back and forth?
Yeah, exactly. All of that kind of stuff. Like the scenery's cool, and we'll talk about that in a little
Yes.
bit.
All right, well, that's kind of story. So, well, we both had 8 out of 10 on that one, starting out pretty good. Next one we'll go to is let's talk about the characters, right? So, this is more specifically like kind of just models, were they interesting, maybe personalities, that kind of thing. So, for me, for the characters in Final Fantasy IX, I am going to give it a 9 out of 10. I really, really liked all the characters in this game.
Yeah, that's man, it's a tough one to rate. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
So I really did like the characters as well. But yeah, there were a couple of things. I guess like a couple of my gripes, and this is pretty common in Final Fantasy games, but sort of happens a little bit with this one, where as far as the characters and everything, at least as far as their development, they kind of have like their little character arc where they have their scene and their moment and everything, and then they just sort of like they're sort of out of the picture. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well,
With
that's
like
actually quite a good
Freya and
point because yeah, well, and you just said Freya,
yeah,
she's the grand one, she had her moment in Burmecia, which was way at the beginning of the game,
yeah,
and then she kind of just was just around, like
yeah.
it's kind of like turning like what are you doing here, by the way? It's
Yeah,
like
because you know what I mean. Like she'll be there and she'll say like supporting things and all this kind of stuff, and she'll be
true,
like, we got to get Kuja, and that makes sense as far as like the antagonist, and her wanting to get revenge and things like
right?
that. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, you have all that happen, and then basically there's no conversation of Fratley or anything like that. There's no, it just sort
Yeah,
of
left in the
is
wayside.
not relevant. So
Yeah. And I mean, I guess my kind of main complaint would be with Kina, and that's obviously just in battle, rather, and we will kind of get into more of kind of that particular things, but she just we've talked about her. She just kind of sucks. She,
yeah,
some of the blue magics are fantastic. They are, but at the same time, it's kind of like, well, some other characters have much better abilities though, and so it's kind of
yeah.
I don't know. And then of course her just her attack being so volatile with damage that wasn't so much fun. But on the other side, of
Yeah.
course, obviously she's incredibly entertaining. Her and Aiko. I will say that now it's kind of hard to compare this Final Fantasy to like say 10 or 12 or 10-2 or anything because voice acting. It would have been maybe a
That's
little
right, yeah.
different if it was in text, but in that sense and keeping it kind of separate, I think Final Fantasy IX is the most entertaining Final Fantasy for me, man. It's just hysterical the whole time. It's just so much little funny things, and of course in the beginning tons of it, and most of it's from the characters. Most of it's
Yeah.
character banter and interactions with each other. Think of
Yeah.
beginning Steiner calling Zidane a scoundrel every turn, and stuff.
Yeah.
It's really hilarious, entertaining things.
Exactly. And you mentioned Steiner too, and I mean there seems to be like sort of a central core of characters that have more of like a prominent role in the story.
Yeah,
Where Steiner's kind of one of them, where his development and his change in demeanor and attitude towards Zidane and stuff is pretty much like this progression throughout the whole game. I mean, it gets less towards the end, but
of course.
um, yeah, and kind of same thing with like obviously Dagger. She's one of the main ones where like her development. I mean, I was thinking about that where this game just did such a great job of like foreshadowing with that initial scene, and then you're still getting information on that in Memoria. So it's
Yeah.
like the very first thing you see foreshadows pretty much the whole game.
Yeah. Well, and
But
exactly, and that's the development I think too in this game with the characters and mostly all of them is fantastic. I mean, seriously,
yeah,
look at each of them and their personalities and their quirks and how they end up in the end, and most of them have changed quite a bit. And then have
yeah,
much different outlooks and just kind of are much more mature in a lot of things, and of course, it just kind of goes together. So. All right, so we're going to go to visuals. Visuals are our next kind of category. Obviously, that's pretty self explanatory. And this kind of just encompasses everything. So, overall, for the visuals, man, what are you thinking?
well, and the other thing with this is too, obviously we're thinking we're going to be rating this within its time, right? Like, because I mean,
Yes.
obviously it's a 1999 game. So with that being said, I think the visuals in this game are amazing. I give it a 9 out of 10.
Ah, nice. I also give it a 9 out of 10. We're starting off with some pretty strong categories here.
Yeah.
Yes, because exactly that, the disclaimer. It's like, no, we are not going to compare it to Final Fantasy 15's graphics. Okay, no, not going to happen.
Be a little bit cheap, you know.
It would. And even the remastered, like just thinking about that, how they really spruce things up, it goes much more than obviously the graphics. And of course, if you're kind of like me and you didn't play some of these games growing up, it might be harder to get back into it because of the graphics. But if you go at it with the mind, it's gosh, man, this is really, really old.
Yeah.
You look at the cinematics, they look fantastic still, even now, it's just
Yeah.
really, really well
I mean,
designed.
yeah, for its time, those FMVs and everything aren't even all that bad today.
No,
Like, I mean,
exactly.
yeah, it looks
Yeah.
cartoony and stuff, but it was obviously supposed to look cartoony
Yeah.
and fantasy and stuff like that. But still, I mean,
It looks,
and just
yeah.
as far as just as far as the environments, I love the variation. I mean, you've got all of the kind of dark forest places like
Yeah.
Evil Forest. You've got the mist in the beginning, Ice Cavern, Condi Pate. You've got like dry areas, snowy areas.
Yeah. You got kind of just nice, sunny, happy areas, kind of like Dali, well,
Oh
besides
yeah,
its dark secret. But no, you got the kind of, yeah, you got the nice bright colors. You got the nice gloomy
yeah.
areas. You got the ones that are just like downright weird, but awesome, like the Crystal World, and
Oh
Memoria
man.
is so interesting. And you got things like the theater ships and, it's such a wide variety of just visuals. I mean, it really is. And the world map, I think, is pretty well done as well. I mean, again, for
Yeah.
its time and for a world map, I think it's fantastic. I think
Yep.
yeah, absolute fantastic job. And then of course you have Cinna. That's the crowning jewel right there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the things I was kind of thinking with this game too, just the weird NPCs like, well, Cinna technically like you play with them a little bit, but you
Right.
know, you've got other NPCs. You've got like the Nero family. That whole thing's super
Yeah.
weird. You've got just like the hippo people, the fish people. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
crazy. Like
A lot of variety.
yeah, like the species I guess that they come
Yeah.
up with in this game. Um,
Well, and then of course you got Terra, which is just, we talked about that a lot when we were there. Just
yeah.
crazy cool looking place, and that's how it is. Like I think they did a really good job with the visuals portraying them in the way that they were supposed to be in the game, such as
Yeah.
Alien or Foreign or Medieval or Dark and Gloomy or whatever. They really captured it.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I mean, some more honorable mentions here, I would just throw in like all of the Q's marshes. Those are really cool.
Yeah.
Burmecia with the rain and everything, that was awesome. And then just the myriad of like cave environments you had in here. You had Fossil Roo, Gargan Roo, Mount Gulag, and then even the Desert Palace. That was a
Yeah.
really cool place.
True.
So
Yeah. Real cool stuff. All right, man. Here we go. We guys kind of dive into the enemies a little bit. We actually we're gonna have two different categories for the enemies, just because it'd be really too hard to give it one grade overall. So the first one we're gonna focus on is enemy difficulty. And for this one, honestly, I kind of struggled with this one for a little bit because it's pretty hard to be subjective about it because it really depends on how you played it. I mean, it
true.
really does. And so I kind of looked at it on how I started and played most of it. And then, once especially Chocobo Hot and Cold came up, and also, using some of my past experiences. And so, with that said, I decided to give it a 7.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head with some of that stuff, though, because I'm going to be rating this as if, minimal grinding, things like that,
Yeah.
because obviously in Final Fantasy, we all know if you grind excessively, then everything's easy. So we're,
Yes.
kind of rating this as fairly as possible, but I would also give it a 7. And I
All
swear
right.
I'm not just copying you on that. It's just honestly, we're kind of thinking similar on this too, I think, because just in general, this game has some areas like definitely towards the end, things get a lot trickier, but through the first half of the game, you don't even have to level up. Like the
No,
enemies are just really, really easy.
they are. And it has its moments, and it has some of the enemies that you gotta kind of just watch out for. But Yeah, overall, it's like you don't really have a threat of a game over for quite a while, especially just on regular old enemies. It does pick up because I mean we actually had very similar playthroughs on this podcast series. We both were pretty darn low level, and we both just had kind of the usual stuff until Chocobo Haunt Cold kicked in, and then I went crazy with it. And so up to that point, it did start to get a little challenging here and there, especially being kind of lower level. But I guess the reason why I had to really start knocking the few points there was, I don't know, I felt they just kind of gave you stuff way too easily in this, or way too
Hmm.
soon, rather, I think is really what it is. Maybe not too easily, because Chocobo Hunt Cold was doing all those grind is not easy, but
No.
way too soon. And then at that point, it just made everything easy mode. You know what I mean? And that's how it was for me. Of course, I got it all, so I equipped it all. Why not? I mean, that
Yeah.
was the first time having most of that stuff when I ever gotten it that early. And
Yeah.
it was like, this is just kind of way too easy. I mean, I could see how these enemies could be difficult because we were talking about them, but I'm like, but I'm not having issues with them because I'm just almost
Yeah.
one-shotting everything.
You're right on that for sure. I mean, 7 out of 10, like I would say, especially the way I was playing it, we were both pretty low level. Definitely the enemies were hitting pretty hard.
Yeah,
So I mean, it's not easy if you're not leveling that much, but the thing about
exactly.
it is once you like know the abilities that they use and everything like that, and you just equip the right status immunities and all that kind of stuff and have a good party, it's really not that hard of a game. I mean, like
Yeah,
Eevee, Steiner, either Dagger or Ico, some healer, and I mean that's pretty much like game over, to be honest.
yeah,
So if you want a real challenge in this game, I think we were kind of talking about this throughout the series as well. That have a sort of an unbalanced party. Like I thought Freya, Amaranth, Kina, and Zidane was a pretty challenging party to have.
yes, yes, and don't overlevel and get those crazy items. So, and then the other enemy kind of category for this is, I mean, it's Final Fantasy. You gotta have an enemy variety. I'll let you. What did you select for this? I'm gonna let you hit that one first before I chime in a whole lot.
Enemy variety, I give this game. Uh, it's kind of tricky. I'd say a 5 out of 10. Honestly, this is kind of one of those areas I think the game fell a little bit flat.
Uh, dude, this is why we started a podcast. You know
Don't
why? What
say
I
it.
gave it? I gave it a
Don't
5 out of
say
10 as well.
it. Don't-
Because
I
we're
swear
on the
we didn't
same
plan on
page
this.
on a lot of things. Yes.
Oh man. Yeah.
Um. And I mean, I think we're gonna probably say the similar things. Is that overall, if you just look at a lot of all the enemies, it's gonna seem like a lot until you start playing the game, and it's like, dude, yeah, I'm in the hour cut. Why am I still fighting? XYZ trolls or whatever. It's like, gosh, man, they're just there's it just keeps coming up again, and it's not a whole lot. Now, here's the even thing. I would have been fine if they even just reskinned some of them. Like Final Fantasy X comes to mind. Like, just change them up a little bit or something.
Mhm.
And they did with a couple of them, but overall, I don't know. It
Yeah.
wasn't that large of a variety of enemies, in my opinion.
No, exactly. And you kind of said it there where they didn't, they had so many character or like enemy models that they probably didn't think to just reskin them. Or I mean, some of them they kind of did, but not
Yeah.
really. But yeah, like I kind of exactly like world map, I think was the biggest issue for me where,
Yes.
for example, if you're on the Mist Continent going from Lindblum to Bernicia, you have like you have different things in the forest and you have different things in the plains, and then it kind of varies a little bit, but not enough. And same thing with the Outer Continent. It's like literally once you get out there, you pretty much only encounter the Griffin, the Zagnol, Goblin
Yeah.
Mage, like just over and over and over again. So yeah, but one thing I will say is within location, I think it had decent enemy variety, like the Desert Palace comes to
Yes.
mind, Memoria, places like that.
Yes, and I think that was kind of the good balance for it was while it didn't have a fantastic variety, it at least did have plenty of unique things to unique areas. And so
Yeah,
that did help, made it at least seem like, but yeah, it was the world map. But you would get into that and you'd fight something different, you get rolled back and we're just out here
yeah,
fighting the same things again. And so it's kinda lame in
yeah.
that regard, but
Yeah, and one other thing I'll add to this, just while we're on enemy variety, and we'll talk about this a little bit more with Endgame, but for example, the Yans, right? Like when it came to thinking about some of the toughest enemies in the game, there's nothing other than Yan. It's like, why didn't
Yeah.
they put in something like two, three, four different enemies? And I hate to compare again, like to Final Fantasy X, but Omega Dungeon comes to mind,
Yeah.
where they had like tons of new enemies in there. So that's just another area I think that kind of sucked because other than Memoria, those were the toughest enemies in the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, that
So
was it. Well, and kind of going on or continuing on with foes, so to speak. Next category we're going to talk about is just bosses. And this kind of goes, I mean, we could talk about the visual. I'm not going to count that into it though, because, we kind of already covered that with the visual. So just bosses in general, like difficulty. What did we think about them? How did they fit
mhm.
in? That sort of thing. So for me, in the bosses, honestly, I thought they did a fantastic job. There were tons of them, as we well know, that's for sure. And so I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 on that.
Nice. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. I think they
Okay.
did a really good job on the bosses and everything. Just got a couple of gripes. The first one is those them steal rates, man. Come on.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Gotta get on that.
Yes.
That is ridiculous, right? Like, I
Some
mean,
of
I
the
can
worst.
understand. Yeah, because it's just insanity levels. I mean, it's like, why even put the item there if you're gonna make it so low? I mean, I can understand like a rare item, okay, fine, but
Well,
0.39%?
and
Really?
and well, not only that, but most of the time it wasn't
Yeah,
even that amazing of an item to be worth it.
exactly.
It's like, yeah, if you wanted to
Exactly.
put something fantastic in there,
Yeah.
sure, but no.
Make it like the Excalibur 2 or something. Come on,
Yeah,
0.39%.
seriously.
Get out of here.
Yeah, I hear you on that one for sure. And it was kind of hard to really think about all of it because of course, again, there's just so many. And so that went in. I like that there were tons of bosses, which is great. We love bosses. Some of them were kind of just totally filler ones, as we know, just they were just there to give you something to fight. But overall, I thought they're usually pretty darn difficult. There was rarely a boss that we were like, oh, this is just easy, especially if you weren't if you didn't know what to prepare for, beforehand.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
then just also, some of them really had key moments for, character development things and stuff like that. You think of the shrine bosses, and certain like that. So some of them are really kind of helpful in that and provided a
Yeah.
really good challenge for the characters, so to speak, in the story and stuff. So I thought they did a great job. Black Waltzes also, come to mind for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a couple of bosses that I really, really love in this game. I mean, the whole, how you fight Beatrix 3 times and then you eventually get her on your side. That was really, really cool. I
Yes.
love the way they did that. Fighting Zorn and Thorn was fun, and then how, later on you had to fight Melty Gemini or whatever. Uh,
Yeah, the reoccurring
all of
ones.
that kind of stuff. Yeah, and Kuja and Garland, and yeah, I think towards the end too, the bosses, just because they used so many of those attacks that had like levels of randomness to them,
Of course.
started to become really difficult. Like Nova Dragon, man, I'm telling you, I got a game over on that guy. Just saying.
All that stuff. Yes, and then that is also why I scored mine because I mean the abilities, man, the abilities are just insane in this. Like for damage equations and how they do it. Mine kind of in that sense. I was thinking of Death Guys and starting with Meteor, and I'm like, yeah, what
Yeah,
a way to start a battle. Well, it
yeah.
might wipe you all the way out, or it might not. It's up to you, pal. Go ahead. Good luck. It's like, what the, what do
Yeah,
you, what is that? What that? That's not fair. It's
cheap.
so,
Yeah, it's cheap.
yeah. So it's pretty cool in that because it does offer a different challenge possibly each time. And
Yeah,
so on that note, sometimes it sucks because it can wipe you out really easily. And then on the other hand, it's kind of like, well, it didn't really do much. Or, yeah, I knew it was coming, so I put on, Bright Eyes, and now it, is
yeah,
pretty much easy. And so, again, on that, it's up to you kind of a little bit, but yeah,
yeah.
really good stuff. All right, man. Well, here we go. Here's a big boy for us, big boy category, side content. So we kind of have a couple different ones. Side content. We mean what I guess we're kind of talking about. This is just kind of the little things here and there, little things you can do. Some of them might be big, but not particularly that open up only at the end game. We got that coming as a separate category. So if you're thinking end game stuff, nope. We're talking things just as you go through the game, and that kind of just you can go and do pretty much almost whenever you want. So, things like Chocobo Hot and Cold. I mean, of course, that's a massive one, but you can do it almost instantly. Jump rope. You can do all kinds of stuff, right? So, side content, I gave it a 7.
I think I'm also going to give it a 7, just to be fair, because, as much as I personally hate Tetramaster card game, it's there. So it is
It
a side,
is.
side
It is.
quest type of thing.
Yes, but on that note, in which why, I didn't. Here's the thing: 9 has tons of stuff. It does, and it has lots of little things. I mean, you can even think about little
Yeah.
Sid's frog, little key thing. That was
Right.
that was
Yeah.
this little side game. It was part of the story, and you had to do it, but it was kind of like a little mini game, so to speak. And you even got the Mog and Kupo Nut and stuff. But I don't know. I gave it a 7, a little lower. I mean, that's still pretty good overall, but you had Chocobo Hot and Cold, and so that was my main thing. I was like, okay, well, they do have some big ones, and then they have a lot of little ones, but it was, I don't know, it was good. I mean, again, 7 out of 10, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Chocobo Hot and Cold is honestly why I'm giving it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah,
That's what's bumping it up, because as
fantastic.
far as mini games in the Final Fantasy series, even though this one does get monotonous like a lot of them do, it's one of my favorite. It's a lot of fun. Like,
It is
it's just an enjoyable game, and I think
because because it also goes beyond just the digging. It's the whole treasure
exactly.
aspect of it. That was
Yep.
really cool, and really different, especially when we were kids before the internet. We didn't know where these places are. You actually did have to go and look for them, and that was kind of a really cool thing.
Well, there was that too, but I think also what made this so great was they gave you really, really good stuff, which
Yes,
when you're
made it
playing it
worth it.
too, it's right. It's sort of encouraging. You're like, okay, that's sick. I'm actually getting equipment that I can't even buy, or sometimes just completely, you can't buy at all. But
Yeah, yeah.
so that kind of stuff. But then, yeah, as far as the smaller things, I think there were a lot of other cool things as well. Like Auction House was a lot of fun. They did have the jump rope and the hippopole racing thing, which
Yes.
I'll be honest, I did not find those that enjoyable,
It's
but they're there.
it's there, and it's fun for the first few times through them, and then it's like, yeah, I'm good.
It's just too much button mashing. Like, yeah, the
Yes.
concept, like you said, is fun, I think, but the mechanics behind it, I can't deal with that.
Yes,
So
exactly. Here we go. We just talked about the end game content. So we're gonna kind of wrap two into one: end game content and like areas. And obviously, if you've been playing Final Fantasies, you get to the end. Last disc, airship, and all that. There are specific areas that only open up then. What did you choose for it, man?
even though I love Final Fantasy 9 so much, I had to give it a 5 out of 10 on this
Oh,
one.
you're
Um,
you were a little bit more generous than I was. Even I gave it a 3, man. I
dang,
gave it a 3.
you're serious. All right.
It's there's like nothing there. I mean, seriously, we
Fair.
talked about like, let's remove all of the side content that we could have played up to,
Yeah.
after the Invincible. And now what's available? Not much. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, not much. And here's the other thing is you could even have gotten to the island with the Yan before this. So technically, yes, that's like a quote unquote end game thing, but it's only end game because the enemies. You could have gotten there in disc 3, so it's not really even a like secret opened up area now at the very end of the game.
I feel you. I feel you. I mean, the only places that like come to mind. I mean, yeah, you kind of mentioned Sovile Island, which honestly, it's just
It's a
and there's
shame.
nothing there anyways. Yeah, exactly. It's just like sort of a desert island. The scenery's not that cool. There's no like place that you can actually enter from the
Yeah.
world map or anything. And then you've got Chocobo's Paradise, which I mean, I did love Chocobo's Paradise because it looked really cool and you could just kind of like mess around. There wasn't anything, to
Sure.
do there, but there was that. You've got Chocobo Garden, you've got Mognet Central. And yeah, I mean, compared to a lot of them, especially a lot of other Final Fantasies like 6, 5, I mean, heck, 7, 8. Uh,
10, 12,
yeah, yeah,
13,
pretty much all of them. I was
15.
thinking
Oh,
about
wait,
it.
no, sorry. Yeah, it's like, but seriously, like all of
Oh,
them at
Endgame
least
Dungeons.
have, they at least have like an endgame dungeon, like an area
Yeah.
you actually go into. You can only get there at the very end of the game. That's the only time it opens up. and some of them are really cool. Think of Final Fantasy VIII's Research Lab. You just mentioned Final Fantasy X's Omegas. And here's the thing, when I thought about this, I tried not to be like, oh, well, they did it better. I tried not to think about that. I just kind of looked at the content and be like, well, it truly is lacking. I mean, not even
Hmm.
Doguario. Like, you can get there way earlier than the end game. So it's kind of just like, I don't know. There wasn't really anything that was very specific to, you made it to the end, pal. Here, now you can go try to kick its butt or go in there for the first time ever.
Yeah, and when you consider also the fact that like Chocobo Garden, you can't even explore on foot.
Yeah, that's
You know
true.
what I mean? There's not really anywhere to go there anyways, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was a little bit generous with
Yeah.
that, but I went
No,
with five.
no.
I'm gonna stick
That's
with
good.
it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got a few left. I was going to go to this next one. We're going to leave that one for the last because it's going to be the best one. All right, man. Battle system. We got to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
For the battle system, we're talking about the whole thing. So, ATB, how'd that work? Party size. I mean, kind of unique with 4 party members, that kind of stuff. I had some massive issues with it, though. Complaints, rather, I should say. So I came down with the hard hammer again. I'm giving it a 4.
Really?
Yes.
Man. Yeah, no, I mean I liked it, honestly. I'm giving it an 8. I really like the battle system, I
All
gotta be
right.
honest. Yeah, I mean, for me, it just I think the main things are, and it all depends on how you look at it. I'm sure you're probably gonna
Yes.
be the opposite of this, but I like that the characters had definitive roles in battle, right? So you
Yes.
had like, your classic thief, black mage, white mage, etc., summoner. I like the 4-person team. The one gripe that I would have is the trance system,
Okay.
but yeah, we can talk about that in a second.
Well, yes, and so that's a major gripe for me as well. The trance. I agree with you fully, dude. I love the Final Fantasies that the characters are defined roles. You can't turn them into anything you want. I do love those too. I do love 12, for instance, and its variability. That's cool and all, but when you have those specific roles, it really makes you choose. You got to give something
Yeah,
up and take something else. I mean that's what
yeah.
it is. And 9 had even something cooler where they had the dual combo with Steiner and Sword Art Magic. Vivi and
Oh
Steiner.
yeah,
That was the coolest thing ever. So
yeah.
those kind of carried it for me. And also the four party member thing that was kind of unique. That was different, or at least for the ones I've played. I've only played since 7. I think some of the older ones you got 4 also, so that's not different. But the main things for me, man, trance system, what the heck? Okay?
Yeah.
Look, I I'm cool. I'm cool with, like the whole thing of, it uses actions and it's gone because it is pretty OP. I mean, let's be real, especially with some of the characters like Zidane. But then you have characters like Amarant and Kina where it's like, cool, now I can eat them at 50% health rather than 25 because that's what I wanted the trance for, was to help me eat
Yeah.
something. Yeah, it's like, and isn't it the best that when you get a trance after you have selected the use potion option? And
Oh
so you use
yeah,
a
yeah,
potion, it's like, well, there
yeah.
goes 2 of my 3 attacks, whatever.
That's
Like it's kind of finicky like that, and it's really
that's
stupid.
actually good. I
And
didn't even think of that.
yeah, just and I
Happened
get
to me
that.
so
It's
many
I'm not
times.
trying to hold them out, like in Final Fantasy X, for instance. I try to use my things. I don't like to hold on to them for a moment. It kind of keeps
Yeah,
it more organic. But when it's kind of cheap like that, another thing, going back to the variability that we talked about, it's just too much, man. I don't know what these
yeah.
equations are. They clearly did not. They got someone who like completed 3rd grade for the equations, I guess. I don't know, but it's just like, come on, guys, you cannot have these stat ranges be like this because
Yeah,
it either makes it just immensely difficult or way too easy, depending on what it hits.
yeah,
And then the other
yeah.
thing too for me is the whole ATB gauge. I played with active, so maybe that was my problem. Maybe I should have played with weight, but I played it with active, and the system we harped on back in the very beginning episodes when we harped on 12 quite a bit. Dude, 9 I think is even worse. It gets bottlenecked like crazy,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
for some of the bosses was really fast ATB gauges. By the time my character is done using fire, Vivi's using fire, like the boss is going again. I'm like, well, what the heck, man? Like I'm trying to queue things up and it goes weird, with it. And I know some of the bosses are
yeah.
just weird like that, but it really doesn't seem to kind of understand turns when it's on active.
No, I agree with you. That all that stuff has happened. It just has really weird, like especially the bosses, they have strange mechanics behind their ATB system that it's like, and in that regard, it's like I kind of understand your rating because it's really complicated. I mean, some of the bosses, like we kind of talked about Ozma getting double turns and Kuja
Yeah,
gets double
yeah,
turns. The ATB sometimes they get like no charge, and they can actually, it'll give it sort of like an ATB score that'll undercut your abilities. So there's all that kind of stuff. I agree. Also with like active, if you have the speed really high, your buffs don't last. They don't do anything because they don't last for more than 2 turns. But I mean, I scored it highly just because in general, I thought it was a lot of fun while keeping challenge. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
while I agree with the trance being less useful, that you can't save it, it's also kind of nice that you can't abuse it, which you also did point out.
True.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then just the characters and I think it's I think the variability can keep it kind of challenging for as much as I gripe about it. And just overall, I enjoyed like the battles. I enjoyed the abilities that they put into the game. I think there was a lot of ability variety, equipment variety, all of that kind of stuff.
Yes. No, I agree. I mean, that's the thing. It's not a one, right? I did like it. It was pretty good, but yeah, I don't know. I just those big gripes, especially compared to like some other just turn based games. And yeah,
Hmm.
and I tried not to like just compare it, but just thinking of it. All right, man. Our last category. This will be our 10th one. And I think it's the best one. It's the music. The music
Yeah,
category. What'd you give it?
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. I did 10 out of
Yep,
10. I thought they just
there you go.
hit it out of the ballpark, man. I thought they
Yeah,
did absolutely fantastic. And of
same
course,
here.
we talked about it all along the way through the series. Like, oh, well, yeah, this
Yeah,
place has a great track. Oh, by the way, this area has fantastic track. Oh, yeah,
they
have you listened to
always
this?
did.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
exactly, they always just did.
yeah. So, what was some of your favorite tracks throughout the game? I mean, we got character themes, we've got the battle themes,
Yeah. I mean,
themes for different locations.
dude, it's so many different ones, right? I think honestly, some of my favorite ones. How about just the regular, just a home screen song, just the one when it just
Oh
plays when
yeah,
it
yeah.
starts off. It's I don't know. I think for me that one is just more nostalgia as well.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just like I remember moments and stuff with that, but that one's really good. I absolutely just loved Aguario. I mean, that one is just fantastic. It's just so
Really
calming
is.
and relaxing.
No, exactly. I agree with you. The home screen too. Back in the day when I was like, you know, 12, 13 years old playing this game, that song always gave me this sort of was like really inspired you to play the game because it just
Yeah,
sounded so adventurous and everything. And it would usually be playing with like that sort of intro video where
with
it's
the
showing you
airships
different,
and
yeah, of, like different parts of the game. That always just I would get so excited about like progressing the story to see
yeah.
some of those scenes while that song was playing. But yeah, I mean, some of my favorites, I think honestly, my number one, and I just would have to say this. I know it's a popular one, but the Terra theme would be
Yes.
my number one, and then probably Esto Gaza and
Via alla flamenco or whatever that
yeah,
one
yeah,
is.
actually uh Freya's theme.
Freya's,
Freya's
yes,
theme as
Freya's
well.
theme.
Plays,
Also, Beatrix's Roses of May. I really,
yeah,
of course, I've mentioned that multiple times. Yeah, see, that's
yeah.
the thing. That's the I'm just remember them as we're talking around. It's like, oh yeah, that one. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
what
because they're
about
all good.
Ibsen's Castle was also a fantastic one. And
Yeah.
stuff. It's just it's they really did an awesome job with the music. In because here's the thing, a lot of other Final Fantasies, I know the songs that I hate absolutely. The prison in Final Fantasy VIII, being at home, Abdoi, Abdoi, like you have those that you hate. Nine, I can't think of any that I'm like, yeah, I really hate that song.
Yeah,
I
same.
don't want to go there right now because I don't want to listen to that song. It's like, nah, dude. I'm like,
Yeah.
heck, I want to go to most areas and listen to the songs.
Yeah, I think there's only a few songs that I don't like on Final Fantasy IX. I gotta be honest, the one that plays at Garganroo and Fossilroo, hate that song. I just don't like that song. It's really, really annoying. So there's
Yeah.
that. But I mean, almost all of the character themes, like Steiner's theme. It just, again, it was Nobuo Uematsu
Yes.
who composed all the
Yes.
music. So of course, Final Fantasy Legend, everybody knows it. But yeah, he did just such a great job of capturing like the characters' quirks in the music, right? Like
He did.
Steiner's theme sounds clumsy, sounds kind of,
It does.
dumb in a way,
Yes.
and Vivi's is really like innocent and sort of joyful and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And on that note too, if you guys haven't listened, Distant Worlds, it's he basically went through and redid all of his older Final Fantasy songs with like a big orchestra, and oh dude, they are fantastic. Highly recommend looking
yeah,
it up on
they're
Spotify.
really
Just
they're
Distant
really epic.
Worlds. Type it in, it'll come up instantly pretty much. But all right, man. I think that's it. That's kind of
That'll
crazy.
do it.
We're done with Final Fantasy 9.
Yeah,
So,
that's it.
we gave you all our ratings. Whether you agree or disagree, well, that's a great thing, right? We all have different experiences and thoughts about the games, and yeah, it's just fantastic game. Glad that we started our first like kind of first Final Fantasy series on Final Fantasy 9. It was fantastic, such a learning experience overall, and of course, next episode, everyone, as I'm sure you're really starting to rub your hands together waiting for it, is going to be Final Fantasy 10. We know that
Yep.
anticipation is high. So we're definitely ready to hit the ground running with that one.
I'm so excited to start 10. It's my favorite game, and I have a feeling that you guys are gonna love it too, based on
Oh
the
yes,
Instagram post. Because every time we do a Final Fantasy X post, y'all go crazy over
it,
it.
it
So
blows up. Yes,
we're gonna have a good time with the next one. But yeah, that's Final Fantasy 9, and we could talk about this game probably forever. So this is
seriously.
just, we had to keep it short.
Yes, absolutely spitballing. I mean, and again, that's why we started the podcast to begin with. It was just these conversations like we're having right now. It's
Yep.
just hey, maybe we should actually just do a podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening and, of course, supporting us through 42 episodes. It's been such a fun time. We're almost approaching the full year mark of Final Fantasy IX. So, hey, we finished it within a year, so that's great. Of course, you can go to our Instagram. As we just mentioned, we kind of do posts of stuff. Of course, we're moving into Final Fantasy X posts, so be prepared to see nothing but Final Fantasy X for quite a long time. I know you're going to really hate that. I know that, but sorry. You can also go to our website, finalstopfinalfantasytalks.com, and it is just, great place to see a lot of the content. We got some blog posts there and stuff, and so check it out, a little more info. And I think that will do it for us this time. I'm Mark,
And I'm Alex.
and this is Final Stop for Final Fantasy Talks.